The Cross'em Wrestling Entertainment Podcast, presented by Clovercrest Media, is what you AEW fans have been looking for. Noah Cross and Tyler Bard give their take on every week's episode of Dynamite. If you are a massive AEW fan, then it is time to join us every Sunday at noon Eastern Standard Time. Stay Cross'em.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is our main event.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Throwing Jabs Podcast. I'm Big Jace, and I'm joined, as always, by my main man, Jared Jones, and the big boss man, Joe Aguirre. What's going on, guys?
First of all, let me say the new open, I love it to death, and I especially love that I come up with the Masvidal knee to Atkins' face. That's my favorite thing about it, Jace. I love it.
I knew you'd love that. I knew you'd like it. All right, let's get down to business. Let's get down to the most recent fight that happened, the Bellator super fight, as Gegard Mousasi reclaims his Bellator middleweight championship after defeating welterweight champ Douglas Lima via unanimous decision. This was a great fight. It really just came down to Mousasi having the advantage on the ground, in my opinion. But honestly, I think these two guys, I might put Lima as the best welterweight in all of MMA, and I might put Mousasi very, very close behind Stylebender, Adesanya. What'd you think of the fight, Jared, and what'd you think of these two guys?
Good fight, real good fight. I thought it was a case of where Mousasi was just a little bit bigger guy, so that when they were in close and on top of each other, he was able to dominate those segments. That being said, yeah, that Lima might still be the best welterweight. And how far do we go? When do we cross promote the MMA organizations? How big does Bellator have to get before we start asking questions about how Mousasi would do with Adesanya and so forth?
I thought this was a great fight, striking, kicking, wrestling. Lima was there too, which I thought was kind of neat. I didn't see it the way you guys saw it, and I definitely, this was either a 50-45 or a 49-46 fight for sure. I don't know what Lima's game plan was. The backpedaling, the occasional leg kick, which really didn't have any effect on Mousasi until late in the fourth, at which point he did nothing with it. And then when he actually started, when he landed a couple nice leg kicks in the fifth, and Mousasi just took him to the ground where he kept him. It's funny. I think Mousasi landed 28 strikes in the fight, and I would bet 14 of them were on his back while Mousasi pinned him to the ground because he had gassed himself from the ass kicking he put on Lima for the first 3 3/4 rounds. Lima put up, to me, a lackluster effort in a championship fight. I mean, I didn't understand what his game plan was, or, I suppose he was waiting to strike late. Maybe he thought he was going to hurt Mousasi with the leg kicks, but it was mostly an ineffective strategy. When he threw his hands up at the end of the decision, I thought, are you out of your mind, bro? You think you won more than one round of that fight? Are you serious? Dude, at best, he was 48-47, and I think even that was being generous just because he inflicted some damage in the fourth. I thought Mousasi pretty much dominated this thing start to finish. Even when he got hit, he was able to just take Lima to the ground and hold him at bay. This was not a great fight from Lima at all.
9 times out of 10, unless you're dealing with a Khabib or the Adesanya, those upper echelon guys, this is what you're going to get when a great middleweight fights a great welterweight. It was reminiscent of Marquez and Mayweather, where it's like, yeah, this guy's a great fighter in his own right, but he's just not big enough to be in the ring with, and that was obvious to me. That size advantage, they live in different weight classes. Their living weight is different from one another. So it was obvious to me every time they grabbed a hold of each other that one guy was built bigger than the other.
Yeah, for sure.
Also, going from 170 to 185, that's a big jump, 15 pounds. So it is a lot. I still think both these guys are up there with anyone the UFC has in their respective divisions. And I'm excited to see how Lima bounces back, where Mousasi goes from here. And I really want to see Mousasi get back into the UFC, and I would love to see Douglas Lima take on someone like Usman. I want to see them in the UFC because these guys are top world-class talent.
Well, and do they have to go over to the UFC? I mean, is there ever going to come a time? That was my question.
No. I'll answer it now. No.
No.
It takes a big fight for me to really check out Bellator. There's already so much with the MMA that I don't want to call it the minor leagues, but it's almost like the minor leagues of MMA. It's like you got to prove yourself in Bellator. I don't watch AAA. I love baseball. I certainly don't watch AAA baseball on TV. You know what I mean? This is a little bit different. So yeah, I mean, a fight like this I'm into, but if it wasn't these guys, I wouldn't have watched it.
True. When's the last time you saw an amateur MMA match?
Right.
Here you go.
Right. But going on from the Bellator middleweight division, let's talk about the UFC middleweight division, where in the co-main event of UFC 254, Robert Whittaker defeats Jared Cannonier via unanimous decision. And I tweeted it out right after the fight. This is a fight I just wanted to see go an extra round. Go the 5 rounds. Make it a main event. Because, boy, Cannonier, he sensed that urgency when it came down to the end, and he started unleashing. And that's why most of the judges gave him that last round. But, just think of just 2 extra rounds. If Cannonier, something special might happen from Cannonier. But the 2 rounds prior to that last round, Whittaker just outclassed him.
Yeah, I'd expect it to get worse if it goes further. Whittaker versus Cannonier. I'd expect Cannonier to tire faster. He was actually craftier and more skillful than what I thought we were going to get. But I think for the large part, we were right. This is one guy with a little more skill and one guy with a little more strength, and you put your money on the skill over the strength because it's a MMA match and not a street fight.
I'll say this. Look, I called this thing. This played out exactly the way I said it was gonna, that Whittaker and Cannonier were gonna bang and that Whittaker would outlast him. It's exactly what happened. So nothing about it shocked me, and you could have given him 5 more rounds. I just don't think Cannonier's got enough power, especially with somebody with the chin of a Robert Whittaker. Whittaker loves to bang. Again, if you're just gonna bang with a banger, you're probably not gonna get too far with it. Now, as far as the rematch with Adesanya, I rewatched the fight 2 days ago, hoping to maybe I could find something. Whittaker does what he does, led with the left, tries to throw the overhand right. He brought it, but Adesanya is clearly a better striker, nearly knocked him out at the end of the first round, knocked him out in round 2. I love Whittaker. I love the fact that he stands in the pocket, but you're not doing it with Israel Adesanya. You can't do it with a guy who's got the size, the reach, and the kickboxing and striking skills. Robert Whittaker needs a different plan. If you watch the Gastelum fight, that was the way to go. Kevin Gastelum fought a great fight against Israel Adesanya. It's to me, it's the method that you should take when you get in trouble. You're going to have to take this guy to the ground. If you just stand there and you're going to bang, you're going to see exactly what happened in the first Whittaker-Adesanya fight, and Whittaker's going to get a beating. So he really better watch the tape like I did and realize that the only way that he's even got a chance is if he changes things up. The standing in the pocket with Adesanya, I can't for the life of me understand why anybody continues to do that with this guy. It makes 0 sense, literally.
Well, and change it to what? Does Whittaker have enough of a good enough skill set? I just think Adesanya is on another level. I think when you say there's a couple guys' names that when you say them, they're just on another level. Adesanya is one of those. Should he get the rematch? Yeah, I guess, but it's unfortunate that this is the best we have for Adesanya in his weight class.
Well, it's only that way because we know what's going to happen. That Whitaker's going to go in there and try to bang with him, and it just doesn't make any sense. Yeah. And so that's why we're like, nah. The thing about Mousasi is I mentioned, just a minute ago, when Lima finally did a little damage for once, landed one. Lima Mousasi just wrapped his legs and took him to the ground. When Israel Adesanya is beating you, you don't have to even be a good wrestler. Just get him down so he stops beating you up. Oh, yeah. And then maybe you can do something for him there. Maybe you get back up. I mean, I don't know, but to me, at least if you're disrupting the flow, it might, or at least getting down on the ground where you can catch your breath and not get beat up so much.
I'd expect that from a layman to go after him, to get close enough to him where he stops generating that kind of momentum before he stings me. I think anybody would figure that out. So I agree with you. It baffles me from time to time when guys don't go, let me duck a couple of these high hard ones and see if I can do something different than what I'm doing.
The middleweight division in the UFC now is a division of strikers. And Adesanya is the best striker in the division. That's why he has the championship. So I need to see him against a wrestler. I need to see someone who's going to take him down and smother him, or at least try to make him work his ground game. Because you hear in interviews, Adesanya is all like, I got submissions. I got some jiu-jitsu. But you're going up against strikers and you're not really being tested on the ground. So I want to see it.
So what would you like to see?
That's the thing. There's no one in this division. It's all strikers. No one's wrestling. I would love to see.
The shame is that there are guys who have those skills, but who just want to stand up and strike. And if again, for the life of me, when you're fighting Adesanya, no, that's the wrong guy to dude. Right? Again, we talked about this a couple weeks ago. If you had to go around with Mike Tyson, I mean, right? You're not going to stand in there and bang with Tyson. You're gonna just wrap your arms around him and hold him as much as humanly possible. When you're fighting Israel Adesanya, I mean, you're pretty much in range no matter where you're standing. That's a problem for almost everybody he's gonna face. Well, he's got a reach, I believe, on par with Muhammad Ali's. I think he's 79 to Muhammad Ali's 80. That's a guy that's gonna hit you a lot. And we know the athleticism of this guy. If you're just going to stand there and think you're going to knock this guy out you're out of your mind. And again, it's why he's dominated this thing as much as he has.
Yeah, well, and the best wrestlers behind him in that division in the top 10 are probably Gastelum and Chris Weidman. And I don't want to see either one of those fights. I don't think either one of them can turn it into the type of Sosa maybe, Jacare, but I'm not sure any of those guys could turn it into the type of fight that we're talking about here. I don't know, man. This is a different kind of beast.
I think the one person that stylistically is the worst matchup for Adesanya is Mousasi in Bellator. I think he has the ability to take him down to the ground and pummel him. And speaking of taking people down to the ground and pummeling, we got the undefeated Khabib Nurmagomedov defends his lightweight title, becoming the undisputed champ. And look at this picture right here. Falls to the ground, crying. He just lost his dad due to complications with COVID. His mother told him not to take the fight, just retire. He goes, he submits Justin Gaethje in the second round with a triangle choke. That's something I've never seen him do. And he's just so overcome with emotions. It goes, there's a lot more bigger things than sports with this fight. And you saw his emotion bring down crying, and he retired after the fight. So this is going to bring into the big theme of today's show is Khabib Appreciation Day. We are appreciating what Khabib has done for the sport. Jared, what'd you think of the fight?
just another. The guy is a class act, inside and outside the octagon, and one of the greatest ever. And I mean, we talk about John Jones, right? Remember his 5-rounder with Gustafsson? Who's Khabib's Alexander Gustafsson? When was he challenged like that? We just never saw it. I think years from now, right now, we're in the mix of it and maybe not able to see it as clearly as we will. But I think if he doesn't come back 10, 15 years from now, you're going to have to look back and put this guy on a very short all-time greats list.
Another fight, by the way, I called to a T. I said a second-round choke. And the interesting thing is I shared this with you guys, I think the day after the fight. Khabib knew Justin wouldn't tap out and actually had him set up for an arm bar and knew he would have to break Justin's arm to end the fight. And being the guy that Khabib is, decided to turn it into a triangle choke because he didn't want to hurt Justin in front of his parents. And I watched an interview with Daniel Cormier, and because I thought I said this to you guys before I heard what Cormier said, to have the wherewithal and the amazing ability to have the thought that I don't want to, like, this is what Khabib's doing in a fight. I don't want to hurt him because his family's here. I'll just choke him out. He'll wake up and everything will be all right, was what DC said. And I thought that was so cool. And it choked me up. Khabib lost 2 rounds in his career. And it's funny when I tell you the 2 rounds, one was the first round to Conor, if you can believe that. Yeah. And then the second one was the first round to Justin Gaethje. That's it. So when we talk about the most dominant fighter of all time, you're talking about a guy who's 29-0, and I know he doesn't have 16 title defenses or whatever John's is, or the 16 win streak that Anderson had. Dude, Khabib is on another level. Another level. And for anybody who thinks that this is another Conor or Mayweather or Brett Favre retirement, let me tell you something. Don't be disrespectful. You don't know anything about the Daghestani people. When my man said he gave his word
To his mom.
bond that you'll never see Khabib in a ring again. He doesn't need the money. He has nothing to prove. I love GSP, but you'd get murdered. You'd get murdered because that's what Khabib does.
Where's my pardon the interruption button?
I'll tell you what, I told you guys this before. I didn't like Khabib until I did. And my brother said to me the other day, it just seems like that's something that would happen. You'd start liking a guy, and instead of him losing, he retires. That seems to be the thing. When I get into a fighter, they tend to lose. And in this case, just when I was loving this guy, he hangs him up. And I truly believe this is the greatest MMA fighter of all time. I know we're going to kind of get into our rankings in a little bit. And it'll reflect. And again, look, Jared, you both know me. I love John Jones. But Khabib's better than John Jones. Plain and simple. He's had a better career. He's dominated everybody. Not almost everybody, but everybody in every fight. There's never been a time where you were like, did Khabib win that one? I'm not. He did. Thoroughly, every time out.
There's no Gustafsson on his record. John Jones has a Gustafsson. Khabib doesn't. It was your brother Tony who said to me that Roy Jones Jr. was saddened by the way that end. He diminished his legacy, and a lot of guys did that, from Duran to Ali. Stuck around a little too long. And it started to occur to me how many guys would be in that conversation if they hadn't stuck around too long. That we're subject to their record of wins and losses and not what weight class they were in. And Loma, You know, we touched on it last week as being in the conversation for pound still with a 13-2 record. You know, how many guys throughout history, not like he's done it, but in different ways have stuck around a little too long to be in that conversation. If Khabib follows through with this, and I believe you, Joe, there's a lot more chance he does than if Joe Schmo had said it. Because this guy has class. I believe his word means something when he gives it to his mom. So I gotta take his word for it, and I think he's got to go down, like you said, as one of the goats of the game, if not the.
What, real quick, one of my all-time favorites, I mentioned it before, is Roy Jones Jr. And, you know, I think we all wish that Roy made this sort of decision that Khabib made, where I'm done. I've done everything I needed to do. Like Rocky Marciano, you clean out the division, you leave no doubt, and you go home while you still got your wits about you.
Ride off into the sunset.
I say, honestly, to me, best wishes on an amazing life for Khabib. And I would bet that there's a Khabib Jr. there somewhere who we'll see in the next 15, 20 years. No, make no mistake about that.
For sure. Khabib is a guy, I mean, Loma just lost, but he's very similar to Loma. You look at Loma and you can appreciate the sweet science of boxing. You can appreciate the art of not getting hit. With Khabib, like we've talked about on the show, the wrestlers before him, Josh Koscheck's, other guys, they just grab you, bring you down, lay on you, till you got tired, then maybe sink a choke in. This is a guy who would pound on you, talk smack, tell you, no, this is my time, get out of here, just quit. This dude, he's another level than everyone else. And Joe, you hinted at it. We got a Who You Got this week. And with the John Jones talking smack about the UFC choosing to put Khabib at number 1 pound for pound. Listen, I'm going full screen here by myself because I've got a message for you, John Bones Jones. You are a sack of shit, 8 balls, and gas station dick pills. You are nowhere near the man that Khabib is, and you are not at all pound for pound. Khabib never lost a title. You've lost a bunch of titles, not even in the cage. And you're going to sit here, oh, I got more title fights. Sure, that's all cool. But this dude lost two rounds, arguably 2 rounds. You could say 0. This man has not lost a ring, lost a match. Lost a round, lost a fight. This man has pummeled everyone he's been up against. You've done nothing. Jared mentioned it. You got the Gustafsson fight. I don't know. Maybe the judges had your balls in his mouth, in their mouths, because I don't see how that you could have even won that fight. That's arguable. So, with that being said, he is not just a better pound for pound fighter than you, John Jones. He's a better person. So don't talk. Let him have his moment. Let him retire. Let him go out on top. I don't need you on Twitter talking crap because he is the greatest fighter of all time. Holy crap. Okay. Speaking of that.
How you feeling? You better?
I feel really good. All right.
It had to be said.
It did. Fuck you, John Jones.
Dude,
okay.
I'm telling you, again, I love John Jones a lot. I was so disappointed to hear him running his mouth. Like you said, this is the week for him to run his mouth. This is the week. Next week, maybe. Not that day.
Yes.
Have some respect.
When I first heard it, is this guy, not right now. Even if you're right, even if you have that's like a half-decent argument. Not right now, dude. No. These guys couldn't be more polarizing for me. We just talked about how much class Khabib has when he switches from armbar to triangle choke so that he doesn't have to break this man's limb in front of his family versus John Jones, who can't let this dude shine for a day when he wins 29 straight fights and arguably loses 2 rounds, as Jace just so eloquently highlighted. This was classless, shameless. I like Jon Jones less and less. I mean, he's the Floyd Mayweather of MMA. I've said it before.
Was just going to bring that name up.
I love what he does inside. He's an artist. From bell to bell, I love him. And every other time, you're those things that Jay said. I'm gonna take the high.
Khabib went, like you mentioned earlier, Joe. He switched from the armbar to the triangle choke to spare Gaethje's parents the fact of seeing his broken arm. Jon Jones went and made fun of Daniel Cormier's dead father in an interview leading up to the fight. They're on 2 completely different levels, both in the cage and as human beings. But let's get into the topic. We got a 2-parter for who you got. First part's going to be with this whole big controversy that Jon Jones is in the center of. We'll start off with you, Jared. We did it last week for boxing. Who is your pound for pound in the UFC?
Pound for pound.
Top 5 pound for pound in the UFC.
5, probably going to surprise you guys, Peter. Jan.
Damn.
At number 4, I got Kasim Usman. Number 3, Jon Jones. As much as I hate to do it, it's bell to bell. When we're talking about pound for pound, I can't put any of that other stuff in there. 2 is Adesanya and 1 is Khabib.
All right. I'll give you mine.
Khabib off the list because he's retired?
No, Khabib deserves it.
Yeah. So listen, I've got the list done twice. I've got it with Khabib at number 1. And then if you were to press me and take Khabib off at number 1, I've got that too. So I'll give you the list. I'll give you the Khabib list, my Khabib list since he's retired now. My number 5 is Amanda Nunes.
That's
who was somebody I had on the outside of my top 5 before there was an opening, and it just makes sense I would put her in there. Number 4 rather is Usman. Number 3, I got Stipe. Number 2 is Adesanya. And as much as you're going to all hate to hear this, my new number 1, Jon Bones Jones. And I'll tell you what, I wish I could spend time with Jon, and I wish I could be his advisor, because I would tell Jon some things. And I would say, Jon, if you're looking at Floyd Mayweather as like a role model, we need a new role model, because Jon's a great guy. Jon, to me, I think the thing I loved most about Jon Jones at the beginning was he seemed so humble. He would win, and he was never like, he would talk smack in a like sort of a veiled way. Like, yeah, I came in and I did what I was going to do, and dominate. That's what I came here for. It was never like, I like the super high confidence, but now he's just, dude, he's not helping himself. We could talk about all the out of the cage problems this guy has. I'd rather just talk about him as a fighter. Because again, when you talk about the difference between him and Khabib, you talked about the fight with Gustafsson. How about the fight with Reyes? That a lot of people said Reyes won.
True.
So what, Jon? What are you talking about, Jon? You're not living in the same reality we are. This isn't 2017, Jon.
You could be his Jason. Like, ever see Hancock? You could be like the Jason.
Telling you, man, somebody like him and somebody like Connor, they just need somebody that could grab him by the shoulders and be like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Come on, man. You're better than this. Take a look at Khabib. Why does everybody love why does everybody love a Muslim guy from Russia? Those are like 2 things we generally hate in America. Huh?
Yeah,
I don't, but I'm saying a lot of people do.
yeah,
This is a guy a Muslim Russian in 2020 America, and we're like, he's the greatest of all time. That speaks volumes about the human being that is Khabib Nurmagomedov. Okay? Yeah. John Bones Jones, all-Americana, baby. All-Americana. And people hate his guts. Same with Floyd. Why do you guys think that is? Do you feel good that you're hated, that you're heels of your sport?
They pretend it's other stuff too, Joe.
Oh, yeah. It's the haters. It's always the haters. Oh, the haters. It's not haters. You're a classless fool, and we're not buying it. That's what it is, guys. That's all it is.
No, it's not that I do drugs or cheat on my wife or beat women. It's none of those things. It's the haters, it's the man, it's racism, it's whatever else I can point at to say that it's not my responsibility because I'm just not a good dude.
I think when you hear someone like Floyd or John talk about race, again, look at Khabib. Russian, Muslim. Hello? If American audiences can get around that guy and they hate you, it's you. It's definitely you. It's got to be you.
You're right. For like the Mayweather and John Bones Jones, I think they are the most American. The only good, no publicity is bad publicity. And they are all over the place all the time. So it stinks. Maybe that's something more about America. But let me give my top 5. For me, this list, it was all about like well-roundedness as a fighter. Number 5, I have Valentina Shevchenko. Only person she really couldn't get past was Amanda Nunes. And then she's been dominant at this new women's flyweight division. Number 4, Stipe. Longest title reign in heavyweight history. Most defenses. 3, that's where I got John Jones. I hate his guts as a person, but he's pretty damn good in the octagon. Number 2, I got Amanda Nunes. She's great. She is dominant. She is the female version of Mike Tyson. And also, I think she's going to continue on for years to come. Because once her striking and power goes away, I think she's just going to start choking ladies out. And then number 1, Khabib, class act through and through. And also this fight, like we didn't really. He did what Justin Gaethje does to other people. He brought the pressure. He came forward.
Hang on.
Justin Gaethje was reaction.
Hang on.
What?
Shevchenko over Adesanya?
Yes.
He's really getting into the pounds for pounds, it seems like. So, timeout. I just want to be clear on this.
12 Elliots might have a shot against Tyson Fury, so I get it. But no.
So, Jace, real quick, if I were to say you have to take Khabib off your pound for pound list, you have Amanda Nunes as the number 1 pound for pound fighter in the world.
Yes, I do. She's a beast. She's dominated 2 weight classes. No one can defeat her.
I was just asking for clarification's sake. Would it make a difference if I told you Khabib couldn't be on the list? Would you reconsider 1, 2, or 3? No?
Nope.
Okay. I respect that. I respect that a ton.
I mean, Nunes is my number 1 if Khabib's off. And then I'd put in at number 5 there, Adesanya. It's the point we brought up before. Like I mentioned, like I prefaced my list with, it's about being well-rounded, and I haven't seen Adesanya's ground game. He's great on his feet, but I have not seen his ground game. And even with him being great on his feet, there's still times where he's getting hit. So he isn't like he's really, really good. Don't get me wrong, but he isn't like flawless, you know?
I don't know if I could fault a guy for nobody bringing out his other skills. I don't think it's fair to penalize him for that.
Rousey wins 10 straight, and people are talking about her striking. Well, if she just armbars everybody, she's on that list. Yeah, same story. I don't care how he's getting it done. Yeah, I agree with that.
All right.
I get what you're saying. You're certainly not wrong. I mean, and it'll be interesting to see if somebody ever has the balls to do it, Jace. If somebody has the balls to try to get this guy on the ground and we find out, what Adesanya could do on the ground, obviously he'll go up higher on your list. And I agree with you. I mean, I complain every week on here about the amount of guys that are just trying to strike with superior strikers. I find it mind-blowing that anybody would do that. But you're right. I mean, until Adesanya's had a chance to show us, I guess we just don't really know.
Yeah. All right. Now let's get on to part 2 of who you got. Who is the greatest in UFC history? Who are the 4 faces you will put on your UFC Mount Rushmore? Also, give some background on how'd you put it together. Starting off with you, Jared.
The first one for me is easy. I think if he's not on your list, you don't understand mixed martial arts or the UFC. They used to fight multiple fights in a day. The clock went up instead of down. There were no judges. It was just wait till somebody gives up or gets knocked out or goes away or whatever it is. And again, no weight classes. Yeah, and there was a 170-pound, 5'11", 175 maybe, Royce Gracie, who won 11 straight. And that's still a record. He won 4 in a row and won UFC 1, 4 in a row and won UFC 2, and then won 3 in a row and couldn't fight for the championship, but came back and won UFC 4. But that 11 straight up to that point is still a record today. Royce Gracie, hands down, nice and easy. That's one. I said when we look back, I think more people will understand how good Khabib was. I understand that now. I think he's on that top 4 list. These last 2 got harder. I think those 2 separate themselves a little bit. I like Anderson Silva. I think he brought the game kind of to another level. And Amanda Nunes. I think Nunes is when I went back and forth with Rousey too, as dominant as she was, DJ Mighty Mouse was in this spot. Liddell.
It's hard, man.
I couldn't fill that 4th spot. I had an easy time with the first 2. I think Gracie and Khabib bookend it for me. Those 2 have to make your list, and then Silva. I mean, John Jones, if you want to make the argument.
Can you stop naming all the people on my list? You're killing me over here. God dang you. You're killing me.
So I don't like Nunes really there. Maybe Silva and Chuck Liddell. I don't know. But Gracie.
Let me give you my list because he's killing me here. I've got Gracie. The reason people even do the Brazilian jiu-jitsu, he's the guy. And obviously, like you said, Jared, if you know the sport and you don't have Gracie on your list, you're doing this all wrong. Chuck Liddell, I think, turned this sport mainstream. I think Chuck Liddell's got to be on this list. Okay. I'll tell you what, and I had Khabib's on my list too. I'm not going to lie to you. He's the greatest of all time, certainly deserves to be there, which left one opening. And I really struggled with this. And you're going to hate who I put on here. I thought a lot about Anderson Silva, but he's 1-6 since 2012. And he's gotten beaten badly by a lot of people of late. And unfortunately, for me, the Spider's just, he should have stopped. He should have stopped 3 fights ago. It's at the point where it's just getting sad. There was a lot of other guys that I thought about to fill out that 4th spot, but my guy, and he's my number 1 today, I think he's one of the greats of all time. And like I said, I hope somebody can help him get his personal situation back on track. I think John Jones will go down as one of the greats of all time. And until John loses a fight, like literally has another L in the loss column, he's one of the greatest of all time. And I know he's been an asshole of late. I get that. I'm a huge John Jones fan, and believe me, it every time he does something stupid, I'm just like, oh God, John, you're killing me. But I love the guy, and I think he's been one of the greats, and I had to put him on my list.
I love that list.
Yeah, I'm not mad at that list.
Khabib, Jones, and Liddell.
All right. Mine is actually very similar to yours, Jared. For me, what I did was I broke it down into 4 categories, the 3 of which being the main real components of UFC as a whole: Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, wrestling, and striking. And then I did women's for the 4th spot. And all of it, the main criteria I thought of was the pioneer aspect, the changing the game and seeing and being the stepping stone for the evolution of the whole sport of MMA. With that being said, you got to start off with Royce Gracie. He is the first real name, the first big name, first to ever do it. Him and his family created the sport of MMA, and he obviously created Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And like every Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu place, if it doesn't have a Gracie name attached to it, it's not reliable.
Yeah, if any of us didn't say Gracie, we're not reliable. We should be kicked off the show.
Yes.
It's Gracie on this one.
Yes. And then, so that was the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu category. For striking, Anderson Silva. Before Anderson, no one struck like Anderson. No one was that fluid. No one brought like the mental warfare aspect with him, like dancing and stuff. He just changed the game of the whole striking in the UFC.
May I interject a quick thought? And ultimately why I left Anderson out, in addition to the losses, was the Weidman fight. The first Weidman fight will always stay with me. Because to me, a champion never fucks around in the ring. And the fact that he got knocked out playing around, that's not something anybody on my top 4 list would have ever done at all. And the fact that Anderson didn't take it seriously in a big moment and lost, and it changed his career, is ultimately why I had to leave him off my list.
I agree with Jace, though, because this guy changed the game. When you see Michael Venom Page and Adesanya and these guys doing these things, that's who they remind you of.
Mm-hmm.
That was the guy you saw do those things.
If there was a 5th Mount Rushmore face, he'd be on my list. I again, when I had to leave somebody out, it came down to I got to leave one of these 2 guys out. It was either going to be Jones or Silva.
Yeah.
And I thought John's a jerk, but he not in the ring, not literally while he's fighting. He takes it seriously. Anderson plays around. To me, a great champion doesn't get knocked out playing around. And that's why I had to penalize him that one point.
If we were going to do this for boxing, would you put Ali?
I would struggle. Again, I think Ali got beat up too much at the end. I mean, again, when you're telling the Mount Rushmore's the greats of all time, I would really have to seriously, because again, right? I mean, Muhammad Ali is probably the greatest fighter of all time. Some would say he would certainly be in contention, Jace. But at the end of the day, some of the playing around stuff, I would hold it against him a little bit. So yeah, if we ever play that game, let me know, and I'll really think more on it.
All right, okay. Let me finish off my list for the wrestling aspect. I mentioned earlier. This is where I put Khabib. Before it would have been GSP, but Khabib has really changed the game as far as wrestling. Like, he's not laying on top of people, just wasting time and then eventually sinking into submission. He's pounding you down. He has his own move called the Dagestani handcuff, where he just grabs your arm and then continues to punch you. So he has changed the game as far as wrestling. And then for the women's spot, the true pioneer of the UFC women's division. And I know their last 2 fights did not pan out as well, but I got Ronda Rousey here. She set the tone. It It sucks that Amanda Nunes is not a big star as Ronda Rousey was, but because she's a better fighter. But Ronda Rousey did. I think Ronda Rousey is also one of the biggest. Like Chuck Liddell brought it mainstream, but I thought Ronda Rousey brought it even more mainstream.
Yeah, 1,000,000%.
No, I'm not mad at you for that one.
So I round my list out with Ronda Rousey.
Again, if I were to, again, it's not like her name didn't come up. And I think when it came to Ronda Rousey, it was also the fact that she was undefeated. Right? I mean, if you look at Amanda Nunes' record, there's a couple L's on there. There's a few L's on there from early on. And she's certainly a different fighter and much more dominant than when she started. So you can forgive those. Again, for me, it's hard to forget how quickly Ronda went from the most dominant force and maybe the best pound-for-pound fighter in MMA to off the map in 2 fights.
Well, that was hard. What made this hard for me is to put Gracie and Khabib on it, and then act like 2 other people belong on that list: male, female, tiger, python, whatever. I don't see it. I like Gracie. I like Khabib. To put somebody else on there, maybe somebody else is climbing their way now. But man,
well, again, when you say somebody like Anderson Silva, I get it. Rousey, Nunes, GSP. I mean, those are all worthy candidates. I think for a lot of these people too, though, obviously not Rousey, but some of these guys and gals are still going. And to me, can either only cement the legacy, Jace, onto your list or Jared's list, or will fall off and be replaced by 2 other people. So these are all. I think these were 3 great lists. I don't think you can go wrong with any. You could make arguments for any one of these folks here by a mile, easily, and you wouldn't be wrong.
Well, and that's it. The only wrong answer was missing Gracie. I think if you'd said Gracie, Liddell, Couture, GSP, Matt Hughes, there's plenty of guys, Rich Franklin, that if you want to throw them in, okay, there was a time. I get it. You can make the argument for him. But missing Gracie was the only way to get this wrong.
Sure. You could even tell me you're not ready to put Khabib on the all-time list. You need a couple of years to really let it simmer, and I would be fine with that. I think you're right. I think Gracie is probably the only guaranteed guy on here just because of the way this sport started, the way this sport evolved. There was definitely a beginning and then some weird transitional periods. Again, why Liddell's on my list, why Rousey's on your list, why Nunes is on your list for very different reasons and for different things that they brought. I love Anderson Silva. You can't have this conversation without bringing Anderson's name up. And again, putting him on the list, great. Leaving him off the list, understandable too. I think that's what makes this sort of debate so much fun is 3 guys who tend to agree on a lot of things, I think, as we do, just came up with 3 really different lists. So it just goes to show that it's all in really how you interpret what this actually means. The face, is it the forefathers? Is that it? Is it the greatest? I like kind of what you guys did, where it's like big guy, little guy, lady, and all around person. Certainly a cool way to do it. It's tough again when what is the Mount Rushmore? Are those the 4 greatest presidents? I don't know if that's necessarily how we came to determine who was on Mount Rushmore. You know what I mean? So it's all in the interpretation, but I think I like what you guys did there. I really do. Made me think a little bit more about mine.
Yeah. Played 6 years. Bo Jackson got injured early. When we talk about the greatest of all time, there are guys in every sport that you can look at and say, well, if you want to argue that it's that guy, maybe it's not necessarily based on longevity or those other things, how many yards you got in your whole career, how many fights you won, how many fights you lost. So it's tough to determine guidelines when you say who's on that Mount because there's pioneers of the game that weren't necessarily Jeremy Horn. That's not a great upper echelon fighter, but man, he did big things for the game.
It's tough when you're comparing different classes, different eras, different, just different sport kind of even, you know what I mean? When you look at just the way where MMA started and where it is today, it's such a different sport that, you know what I mean? If you were to say, here's the Mount Rushmore list and here's the specific set of criteria, I could probably give you a completely different list.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's the most interesting part of this is what does Mount Rushmore actually mean beyond just pick your 4 favorites of all time? You know what I mean? Like there's so many ways to do it. That's what I love about that debate and why I'll have it any week you want to do it.
Open-ended criteria.
Yeah. This is something we're going to have to bring back the Mount Rushmore.
Love it.
All right. But we just spoke about him. Now he's fighting tonight. Anderson Silva, the farewell fight, supposedly, as he takes on the 10th ranked middleweight Uriah Hall on ESPN Plus. Main card starts at 7 p.m. Jared, what are your thoughts on this fight?
This is a dangerous fight for Silva. I think he should have been gone some time ago. I think we just touched on guys sticking around too long. You talked about him not making your list because he's hung out too long. And this Uriah Hall kid is dangerous in every aspect of the game. He's an explosive striker. This is a dangerous matchup for Silva. I don't like it at all. I think he should already be gone. And where are you trying to get to? I don't think he can do anything in this fight, win or lose, where it helps his legacy, where it adds to his long-term value. Those highlight reel things he's done, they already happened, dude. Even if you win this fight, it's probably a decision. And I mean, you're just not the same guy. This can't add to when we want to put Silva on the Mount Rushmore. Those reasons we want to do it for, those are already set. You can only tarnish them by keeping this up. And Hall is a dangerous man, boy. You ever seen Hall's spinning heel kick? I don't remember who we knocked out with him. Oh, boy.
You just seen his whole season of The Ultimate Fighter. He was just destroying people.
That was not.
He's got a couple of those spinning heel kick knockouts. I was watching some video of him last night, and I've seen it a couple times out of him. Look, Uriah Hall is a very exciting fighter, but he's terribly inconsistent. He's 8-6 in the UFC. So you watch this guy's highlight reel, and you'd be like, this guy's got to be like 25-0, and then you see he's 15-9, and you're like, wait a minute. I'll tell you this though. I mentioned 1-6 since 2012 for Anderson Silva, who gets beat up a lot. The fight with Adesanya, I just watched that one again a couple weeks ago, and I'll tell you, to me, you know what I saw? I saw Israel Adesanya going out of his way not to destroy Anderson Silva. That's what I saw. I saw respect in the ring. Adesanya didn't want to destroy a legend. I don't think Uriah Hall will extend him that same courtesy. Uriah Hall he needs a win like Anderson Silva. And even though this is an aging legend, it's a legend and a huge name on the resume nonetheless. So I don't like this fight for Silva for a million reasons. I already mentioned I thought he should have been gone quite a while ago. He's an amazing striker, 60%, by the way, striker for his career, which is outstanding. But to me, I think Hall's just going to be ready. I mean, again, this guy needs this win in a huge way, and I think he gets it done. I think it probably goes the distance, though. I think this is going to be another one of those fights where I think, unfortunately, Anderson Silva, he'll have moments where you're like, oh, I remember that. And he's going to get beat up, and he's going to get beat up badly, and I hate watching it every time I see it now.
Yeah, I only see this fight going two ways. And you mentioned it, Joe. I see Uriah Hall taking the respect and doing Israel Adesanya route where it's like a Bruce Lee movie type fight and he wins that way. Or we see Uriah Hall from The Ultimate Fighter and he does some crazy stuff and sends Anderson Silva out on his back. Either way, I would love to, for the respect of Adesanya, I want it to be more of a movie type fight, but I just don't know. I don't know. Looking back, Silva's had a great career, and this is a tough fight. It's going to be tough seeing him put the gloves down on the cage, but yeah, his time has came and went, and hopefully Uriah Hall can move on and use this as a catapult to put himself up there, back in the top of the middleweight division.
I hope Hall at least can end it in a cooler way. You know what I mean? I mean, again, if he just bangs with Silva and he wins a close decision, I don't know that this will do anything for either of them, really. I mean, it's certainly a win for Hall and be a nice name on his resume, but if he can't like do something to really blow people away, I think he's just going to stay there around number 10, you know, until the next generation can push him right out of there. So it's a big fight for him.
Yeah. All right. Now let's move on to boxing live from Las Vegas on ESPN Plus. Bantamweight title fight, IBF WBA champ Inoue takes on Jason Maloney. We spoke a little bit about Inoue last week, talking about pound for pound top 5 in boxing. Jared, what do you think of this fight?
Well, a new nickname came up this week. He's the GOAT. He's the GOAT Inoue. Jason Maloney, you're welcome. Jason Maloney at 21-1. His only loss was to an undefeated Emmanuel Rodriguez. Emmanuel Rodriguez, you'll remember, was Inoue's last fight. He devastated him. Second round knockout, knocked him down 4 times. Scintillating performance against an undefeated guy who just met another top 5 undefeated guy for the right to fight. This guy, Tony schooled me on this guy. I've done the research now. In this weight class, with that knockout percentage, he's the GOAT in a way.
He's a killer. He really is. This dude is straight up a monster. He's got the power. Kind of came out of nowhere. Won a title in his 6th fight. Added a second title in his 8th fight. So it is worth noting. Inoue, by the way, it's been 11 months since his last fight. So he's going to have to shake off a little bit of rust. I would expect him to land early, see what kind of chin Maloney has. One would guess probably not one that can hang with Inoue. I think there'll be a knockout somewhere towards the 8th round.
All right, I like that. This is.
I don't think it'll take that long.
I don't know.
I'm just thinking he's got to get his legs under him, kind of get comfortable, and I want to give Maloney a little credit for the 21-1.
Okay.
And assume that this isn't a lot of nobodies, but it is.
Inoue's last fight, he won by second round knockout over that one.
Yeah.
On Maloney's list, styles make fights, but you know.
I've spoke. I mentioned it last week. I'm a sizist. The bigger weight class, they just I like them more, and I think general public same exact way. These little guys, a guy like Inoue with the knockout power, you have to tune in. Like the reason people don't like the lighter weight class is because it is so technical and they're so fast and they have like longer motors. So everything goes to decision. This guy's knocking people out at this weight class. you need to tune in because this dude is for real, and he's got that power that brings stardom.
Yep. There was a guy, Vic Darchinian, coming up in those smaller weight classes. He just reminds me of a couple guys that were smaller but packed a punch, man. You don't see it too often. This is the type of talent in this small weight class and the type of power you don't see often at that size. He's definitely worth the look.
Yeah. A great example in the UFC is Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson. He had to throw a dude in the air through a suplex and get an arm bar while he's coming down just so people would start talking about him when he broke the record for the longest amount of title defenses. You have to do so much more when you're at this lower weight class to get the clout that everyone else is getting. And this guy, first, in a way, definitely deserves it.
Oh, for sure.
But speaking of clout, you want to talk about someone who's getting a lot of clout, Gervonta Tank Davis. He will be taking on the WBA junior lightweight champion, Leo Santa Cruz, live from San Antonio on Showtime pay-per-view. Jared, you've talked a lot about Gervonta Davis. What do you think of this fight?
Santa Cruz. I like Santa Cruz all day. I think Tank Davis is one of the most overrated fighters in the game. And I think Leo, here comes Santa Cruz. Here comes Santa Cruz. We'll prove it tonight. And I'll call late knockout. Ninth round knockout, let's say.
Interesting.
I take Cruz, and I think he'll finish Davis.
All right. Look, here's the thing with Davis. He's a Mayweather protege. So you know what that means? He's just ducking dudes. He was ducking Loma. And it's funny, they asked Floyd why he's ducking Loma, and he was like, dude, Loma's 32. We can wait on that fight. What? Floyd, what does that even mean? Again, these guys don't want to fight guys in their primes. They want to give you that fight 4 years after we wanted to see it. And it's killing boxing.
And we've talked about it before. When Floyd was Davis's age, he'd fought Castillo twice. He fought Corrales. He fought Augustus. He was making his rounds with some of the best fighters in his weight class. And so Tank Davis, if he even wants to live up to Floyd Mayweather's level of competition, which ought to be easy late in his career, but right now you're falling severely short of that mark.
So here's the thing. Santa Cruz has a great jaw. He's a banger. He's not a really skilled fighter. If he can take Davis's punches, he can win the fight. And I know we'd all love to see it happen.
This is Broner-esque.
100%.
Listen, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news here, but I am very unsettled about this fight. I think Gervonta Davis is going to win by decision, but an unjust decision. I think we're going to be coming here next week talking about this fight and talking about how Leo Santa Cruz was robbed. Because Gervonta Davis is that protege of Mayweather. And
I
he
should
has
mention
a little bit of a name.
I should mention I actually have Davis by decision written down here. Because I do expect it to be some BS where Mayweather's guy pulls it out, because I don't think Santa Cruz has the knockout power, and I don't think Davis can knock out Santa Cruz. So I think it does go to the cards, and I think it's going to be, like you said, Jace, one of those where like, come on, no way, go!
What fight were you watching?
And I hate that's what I'm expecting. Because it's a boxing. If this was UFC, I would not be expecting this, but it's boxing. And that's just where boxing's at now. And it sucks. It really sucks because this is going to be a great fight. And I'm sure Santa Cruz is going to come out and he's going to be ready and he's going to bring his A game. But just my brain says he's going to get robbed.
That's a decent prediction. I mean, that's you're right. It's the money guy. That's the name. Gervonta Davis is the name. If you're interested in going that route as a judge, this would be one of the times something like that would be in the cards. Yeah, it's a good prediction.
Yeah.
Square.
All right. Before we move on, some other noteworthy fighters in action on the UFC fight card. The co-main event: Bryce Mitchell versus Andre Fili. That's going to be a great fight. Also, I don't want to talk about this, but sports, it's relevant. Greg Hardy's in action also on that card. And then in the co-main event of the ESPN card. In the co-main event of the ESPN fight, the WBO Women's Junior Lightweight Champion Iwa Brodnaka versus Michaela Meyer. Regis Prograis is also on the Showtime pay-per-view card. And then also on the DAZN, heavyweight contender Alexander Usyk's in action, as well as Savannah Marshall and Hannah Rankin to battle for the vacant WBO women's middleweight title. So fights all over the place this weekend.
Can I just fire out a quick thought on my guy, Alexander Usyk, who is 17-0 with 13 knockouts, making the move up to heavyweight. And here's the thing. I think Usyk's not big enough and he's not strong enough. You know, he might be the best cruiserweight, in my opinion, since Evander Holyfield. He's the first 3-time champion since, or the 3-belt champion since Holyfield, and Holyfield didn't have the WBO; it wasn't recognized back then. I'm just super concerned that this is one of those times where a guy is put himself in a place where his skill set. You know, I'd love to see Usyk get a win and get on a roll. It's Loma's best friend and chessmate, but I think he's a great cruiserweight. I'd love to see him become a great heavyweight, but we'll see what happens. Hopefully, he gets on a roll with this weekend. It didn't look good in his first his debut as a heavyweight. So we'll see what's up.
And this is a guy I put on a pound for pound list, and much of what you just covered is why. I mean, will he be able to succeed at heavyweight? But no, but in his weight class, furious. Now this guy's fighting Derek Chirosa. Lost to Vitaly Klitschko, lost to David Haye, twice to Dillian White, twice to Tyson Fury. So his losses are legitimate. I think Usyk will win the fight, and I think he'll use it to establish himself in the heavyweight division. I think his boxing will come through, but I think against a guy like Fury, you're right, he's too small. I also wanted to touch on Chisora, suspended for 4 months in 2009 for biting an ear. Foul missed by the official. He went on.
He spit on both of the Klitschko brothers. I mean, spit. Yes. He's a. That's all this guy.
Broke out in a brawl in the post-fight interview with David Haye. Plastic bottle hit him, and he tried to run through people. Threw a table at Dillian White. Yeah, so there's a list here of this guy being a really cool guy.
This guy's a boxer. This isn't from the WWE.
No, this is real life.
Yeah.
Oh,
this is the guy Usyk's fighting. So I expect Usyk to win, but as I say, he struggled with injuries, and this guy has no problem making things dirty inside and outside the ring. So,
put it to you like this: if Usyk doesn't dominate or even win this fight, for that matter, I think he's got to seriously consider going back to where he came from, because so far not. You know, the other thing is he's been getting injured in training. Like the extra weight, the extra sites, it's not really translating for Usyk, and it's because I love the guy.
True.
Be who you are. You know, he's a small guy. He's about the size of, say, Joe Louis or Muhammad Ali. not a big dude, right? Kind of on par with Holyfield. Those guys were more powerful punchers than he was. That's how they were able to survive in the heavyweight division.
You ever seen this little kid on the soccer?
Yeah.
You know how big they are yet?
Yep.
You know, they're trying to run, but they grew too fast. So they're like, you know, 1.5 foot taller than everybody else, but they don't understand how to work their body. When you're that age and you jump up that in weight class like that, you know, whenever I hear in the NFL running back put on 15 to 20 pounds in the off season so that he'll bulk up and be able to run people over and avoid injuries, and it's like if you're not that size and you're not used to moving at that size, I don't expect you to be able to just keep putting on more and holding more without being a little awkward with that extra stuff. And I think that's kind of what we're getting from Usyk. You're trying to come up and get these big name fights, and it's make some money toward the end of your career, you know, a long, illustrious amateur career. And yeah, best of luck. I hope he gets through this guy. This is not the guy you want winning fights either. This Chisora guy's character is trash.
Yeah, the best we can hope for is Usyk comes in, gets the win, and he ends up being that fourth competitor in the heavyweight division. Can you imagine fight with him and Fury or Joshua or Wilder? That'd be great. But you got to get past. You got to get up the steps before you're at the top.
I'd like to see him with Beterbiev.
Usyk's put on 17 pounds. That's a lot.
I mean, yeah, it's not conducive. You need time to adjust, you know, and you're talking about a size that you've lived your whole life.
Yeah.
Can't adjust that fast.
Yep. So that's going to do it for fights for this weekend. But we are going to end the show like we always do. And my man Jared hit me with that flurry.
Giving flowers, hugging, crying, and saying I love you. Giving flowers, it's kind of a funeral reference. You show up and give flowers. And this is just some sensible advice to give your flowers today, not to wait for it. If you love someone, tell them about it. We touched on Khabib's father dying before his last fight and Khabib's retirement. And as I'm watching all of this unfold, and I'm brought to tears, hoping that he had a chance to say everything he wanted to say to his father. He'd gotten to say the things while his father was alive to hear them. I've had times where I found myself in the Hallmark section of a store trying to find a card that could somehow reach into the afterlife and cross the grave through a spouse or the person closest to them and somehow get those feelings across for what I wanted to say. You know, times I'd waited too long to give flowers. The younger brother of a kid I grew up with just overdosed this weekend. My aunt just survived a life-threatening ordeal and is home, thankfully, recovering now. And one of my closest friends, a member of the Scrub Scraps board of directors, we just found some stuff out. He needs emergency surgery, and this is all in the last week. Now, I had times that I just touched on where I had a lot of trouble giving any flowers, showing any kind of emotion in any way like that, and ended up feeling remorse and guilt that I can still feel to this day. Whereas if any of those people were to go, if this good friend of mine I'm talking about were to pass, it would be traumatic. It would be a loss that I can't even describe, but I would be comfortable that I've said the things to him that I wanted to say, that I've given him his flowers, that I wouldn't be standing there trying to talk to his wife about how much I love the kid because he knows, because I told him. I'm comfortable with what I've done, and I have the solace of knowing that I said what I wanted to say. So giving flowers, give your flowers today. Don't wait. Let them know. On to hugging. This is going to sound crazy, but here's what goes on subconsciously when we hug each other. We're soothing and desensitizing the darkest, earliest, and most traumatic experiences for one another, and conditioning each other to believe our existence on Earth is okay. Now, I know that sounds like a stretch for a simple hug, but why do we squeeze and rock back and forth and pat each other? We ease an individual's trauma by returning them to a place of comfort after the traumatic event. And the fact is, the darkest, earliest, and most traumatic event in any of our lives is our birth. You think about the sensory shock that must take place during your birth. You're going from darkness to lights. Sounds go from muffled and dull to loud and crisp. There's smells and tastes. You're breathing air for the first time instead of fluid, and that fluid is coming out of your lungs and your throat and your nose and your ears. And that sounds like it would be pretty traumatic for any of us right now today as full-grown adults, let alone as our first experience in the world as a newborn baby. Now, I said we ease an individual's trauma by returning them to a place of comfort after the traumatic event. So how do we comfort a newborn baby? We hold it tight and close to us to simulate the warmth and comfort of the mother's womb. We pat them rhythmically to simulate the mother's heartbeat, and we rock back and forth to simulate the feeling of living inside a fluid. And we simulate the sound with our hushes. Somewhere inside everyone you know lies a newborn baby who may or may not have had enough of those things given to them during their infancy, but who either way still needs them now, because we never outgrow that need. And when we hug, we're soothing and desensitizing our darkest, earliest, and most traumatic experiences and conditioning one another to believe our existence on Earth is okay. Unfortunately, we don't do nearly enough hugging, crying, or saying I love you as a society as we should. In the same way we condition little girls to believe they're ugly because they're not 7.5 feet tall with triple D cups like Barbie, we condition little boys to believe there's something weak or homosexual about showing normal human emotions. I'm going to steer around what happens when these become trademarks in a society because I'm a solution-oriented person. So I'm going to instead cover how we fix it. And we fix it by becoming and raising leaders strong enough to give flowers, strong enough to hug, cry, and say I love you. Strong leaders who can normalize these things and make them okay for everyone. Strong enough leaders to publicly show the emotion, answer the questions, face the judgment and ridicule. Strong leaders like Joe. As I'm watching Khabib retire and talk about his dad and thinking about giving flowers, as in a funeral, I thought about Joe on last week's show saying, you talk to anybody about scrub scraps. Ask anybody who's affiliated with them about Jared, and they'll go to war with him right now today, and it's a measure of his character. And these things I hear, and they make me believe I'm good and worthy, and therefore inherently by feeling good and worthy, I become a better human being. You make me better by believing I'm good and worthy. They're the kinds of things you want somebody to say at your funeral, but you wouldn't mind hearing before them. So thank you for the flowers, Joe. I love you. And now, special guest from my co-host on Throwing Jabs podcast to my co-host in life. Special guest 5-question interview for the Flurry, introducing my wife, Erica Jones.
What's up, Erica?
Hi.
Okay, question 1. How often do I cry?
A lot. At least once a day.
Probably once a day. True Jimmy V fashion for anybody who's scoring at home. Do you remember how you felt the first time you saw me cry, and can you describe what you were thinking?
Yeah. I was a little, I guess you could say, turned off. I was, why is this grown man crying? Men don't cry type of thing. But the more I got to know you and cry with you, I just learned how passionate and amazing. You really are. And being able to shed those tears and have those emotions as a man is, it's really impressive. And I've just never connected with anybody the way I've been able to connect with you. And I think some of that has to do with crying together.
Well, you kind of answered it, but when I cry now, how do you see my tears?
Beautiful, passionate, powerful.
I think you answered all of my questions. Oh, last one. Do you believe your ability to display your emotions more comfortably adds to your overall level of happiness in your life?
Absolutely. They say holding things in is bad for you. And that is so beyond true. And being able to express them is so good for you. So crying is really, really good for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So if you have somebody like a Joe or an Erica in your life and a foundation to be emotional, give your flowers today. Hug, cry, say I love you. These activities are measures of your strength, not weakness. They are foundations for your happiness, and they are the most valuable things you will ever give or receive in your life. Thank you, guys.
It's funny, just to sort of follow up with what Erica said. I mean, and I've never had an issue with it. I never thought, wow, this isn't manly enough. Jared and I get together often enough when we sit and we talk, and every conversation, Jace, ends up with us crying, like, and a hug, and I don't, I think Jared or I will punch anyone's face in that would even laugh or question at what we're doing. It's a beautiful thing. We're an emotional species, man. And to me, the people that struggle the most are people who don't have an outlet, who don't feel loved, who don't feel like they can cry, who aren't comfortable being themselves. And it's a really sad thing. Jared and I had a meeting here at my house here the other day, and our meeting had to be interrupted. And my brother was here helping with some research for this show. And I said to my brother, I go, I'll leave you guys be. I'll be back in about 40 minutes. This guy's going to have you crying in minutes. And it seemed my brother went out of his way to not talk about emotionally charged items just so that he wouldn't cry in front of Jared. But I'll tell you this, you talk about the flowers. I mean, my brother's a huge boxing fan. He loves combat sports. And when I was first asked about coming on this show, I thought, I'm going to need your help, bro. I'm going to need your analysis and your help. And I see my brother every week now. My brother comes over. My brother's and I thank you, Tony, for watching the show. And he loves Jared. He's a big fan of you, Jace. He was a fan of the show before I even came on it. And does a lot of great research. You heard Jared reference it a little bit earlier on. He's given us some really great insights. And through this show, like I have a relationship with my brother again. It's a beautiful thing, and it's just another thing that Jared Jones in his crying stuff made happen. So thank you. I know my mom and dad appreciate that a lot too.
Well,
so
I always kind of reference, like, what a better place to do it when I talk about strong, ambitious leaders trying to normalize these behaviors. What a better place. And my father made a comment the other day. You need people to lead the way that people are going to listen to. And Elliot, my son, he's 14 months now, but Papa says he's going to be a real emotional guy, and he's going to be real sensitive, and he's not going to have trouble doing any of those things. And he'll also be able to kick the other guy's ass 95% of the time. So what better place to say, what better place than a boxing podcast and a boxing club and boxing trainers and guys who could also kick your ass, that could tell you it's all right to cry as a grown man. It's okay to hug each other. I love yous are okay. Those are things we need, and most of us got too little of that when we needed it the most. So to neglect to not give it to each other today, when it's free and easy, just means to continue out the dysfunction that was handed down to us.
It's funny too. A lot of the times, whenever I see Jared, I've always been a handshake to the hug guy anyway, and I'll put my hand up. This dude ain't even having it. He's just like, nah. You bringing it in, and it's just right straight to the hug. My brother and I hug and we kiss each other when we part ways. You know, again, laugh. My brother and I will kick your ass. You know what I mean? Like. This has nothing to do with toughness. To me, I think if you are a man, there's nothing you can't do, and you should believe there's nothing you can't do, right on down to crying and right on down to being emotional. And you're right, man. You know, we live in a world now, you know, where tomorrow's not guaranteed. It's guaranteed even less than it was in a couple of years ago. I mean, we're facing a worldwide pandemic. You're right, Jared. Give your flowers now. Tell your boys you love them. Tell your brother you love them. To me, life's too short for like. This is, I think, why I find the Mayweathers and the John Joneses of the world so tired. Life's so short, man. So short to waste your time on petty shit. I don't understand it. I really don't. I don't get it anymore. You know, I think when you look at the situation this country is in, you know, I've adopted a rule, and I share it on some of my other podcasts. I did for my students, Connecticut School of Broadcasting this morning. I have one rule in life. It's the one commandment. Don't be an asshole. I think if you approach every situation and you take the Joe Aguirre only commandment of don't be an asshole and you apply it properly, life will be so much better for you and everybody around you.
I'm going to mangle this quote, but even if you are religious, I mean, in the Bible for Christianity, there's a line that says something along the lines of, if you're only going to follow one rule, love one another. So, you know, my papa says, give everybody hugs. You know, I used to think he was talking about my sisters and my mom when I was, give everybody hugs. Okay, Dad, I'll hug my sister. You know, and then for a while I thought he was talking about my family, you know, when Trin was a kid. And then I realized this is a life thing that he's telling me, that, you know, we just need more of that in the world. So be a pioneer for it. It's good advice. Give everybody hugs.
I love that too, Jared. Be a pioneer. I mean, be the guy that leads by example, you know. And again, I think Jared and I do a really good job of just crying everywhere we go.
I normalized it as my work. I mean, shout out to Phil Benito and CSC Sisters, but we have a boardroom where we do hiring, firing, interventions, and I mean, a lot more tears have been shed since I got there, you know. But it's another leader, another strong. When I say Phil, I'm talking about a strong leader in a position of power that makes it look okay for other people to have those regular human emotions. You know, and at some point, be happy in their lives based on their ability to share them. I think that's why I thought Erica would be a decent addition to what I was trying to say here, because her attitude of being embarrassed for me to realizing it's a measure of my strength. You know, he's crying. Yeah. He must be weaker than other men. And here we are, you know, 8 years later, and she's, oh, this is a measure of his strength when I see him cry. This is his passion. This is why he gets things done in the world, because he has that. You know, it's a totally different view. And I think if we all could make that transition, we'd be happier. It'd be a nicer place to live. Sure.
Yeah. If it is genuine and coming from the heart, there's no shame in showing your affection and emotion. And I know right after this, I'm going to go hug my little brother and sister and tell them I love them.
Well, we love you, Jace.
Love you guys too.
I made him do it.
But that's going to wrap it up for Throw-In Jabs. Thank you, Jared and Joe, for joining me. And a reminder that this podcast is brought to you by Clovercrest Media. It's part of the CMG Podcast Network. If you are interested in starting your own podcast, go to clovercrestmedia.com to get all the information you need there, or you can just look at the screen right now. Or if you are looking for podcasts, check out clovercrestmedia.com. There's sports, there's comedy, there's murder mystery, there's everything you got. Check it out. You're not going to regret it. And we got a special treat to end the show. Happy Halloween, guys. And this is a special treat from our own Jared Jones.
Knock, knock, ready or not, there's a psycho in the ring, a scary movie exorcist. Your host, come see what lies beneath. At the cabin in the woods, let me in. For Halloween, I'll tell you tales from the hood. If you promise not to scream, I was with carrying some freaks. Dropping in Christine with the lights out. On Street on Friday the 13th. Took a wrong turn and swerve cause I couldn't see a thing. With the Shannon and an eye and a son to trick or treat. Jarring and then I run from cover and leave the others with a grudge cause I still know what they did last summer. Creep through the mist and the fog as darkness falls through the tall grass. Down a path I saw, so don't flop and my mind slid during the descent. So I'm cheating death.
Don't hold your breath.
Got revenge with the undead Hellraiser, Candyman, Jason, and the boy from the Sixth Sense. Took a stand in zombie land with the queen of the damned. And broke the jaws of 7 lost boys with idle hands. The invisible man broke in silence of the lambs. This purchase for the birds. Get out while you still can. Don't look now, don't run, don't breathe now. Just hush these voices. You can't trust, they're strangers. You're the guest, here's the invitation. Your final destination's with us. From dawn till dusk, we gnaw it up. Dead awake, the slumber's over. Keep your child's playing funny games in a quiet place through midsummer till next October. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our main event.